Okay, so what we're going to be working on today is the review sheet for your first test for the quarter. All right, so notice that we have all these functions, these polynomial functions. All right, and we have to do a few things. There's A that we have to add g of x minus h of x and add it to j of x. We're going to just subtract. We're going to multiply, and one will divide. So I wrote them down here, and then the first one we're going to add. Okay, so A is to do g of x minus h of x plus j of x. All right, so I'm just going to rewrite this. So I'm going to put g of x first. So in parentheses, because it's a polynomial, so it's x to the fourth plus 5x to the third minus 6x squared minus x minus, and now h of x. And h of x is 3x minus 1 in parentheses. And then at the end, we're going to add j of x, which is 2x. And I don't need to put that in parentheses because it's just a monomial. All right, now let's remember, follow order of operations, so I have to subtract first. Make sure that you do distribute this -1 that's really here. All right, so I have x to the fourth plus 5x to the third minus 6x squared minus x minus 3x plus 1. And then what you can do, since I just have this monomial at the end, I could put plus 2 at the end. All right, now let's combine like terms. So I have an x to the fourth. There's no other x to the fourth, so I just have x to the fourth. I have 5x to the third, no other x to the third, so it's just plus 5x to the third. I have minus 6x squared. There are no other 6x x squared, so it's minus 6x squared. I have a 1x minus 3x is negative 4x plus 2x. So negative 4 plus 2x is negative 2x. And then I have plus 1 at the end. All right, so let's try B. Okay, so B is f of x minus g of x. So you got to make sure you put it down in that order. So f of x has to come first. So that's 6x to the fourth minus 4x cubed plus 10x squared minus 8x, close the parentheses, minus, and now put g of x, x to the fourth plus 5x cubed minus 6x squared minus x, close parentheses. Now what we're going to do is make sure we distribute that -1. So it's 6x to the fourth minus 4x to the third plus 10x squared minus 8x. Now distribute the -1. So we get negative x to the fourth minus 5x to the third plus 6x squared plus x. Now we're going to combine like terms. So I have 6x to the fourth minus x to the fourth. Remember, there's really 1. So 6x to the fourth minus 1x to the fourth is 5x to the fourth. Negative 4x to the third minus 5x to the third is negative 9x to the third. Positive 10x squared, positive 6x squared is positive 16x squared. Negative 8x plus 1x, remember there's really 1, is negative 7x. All right, let's try C. Okay, so C is h of x times j of x. All right, so I'm taking this is a binomial times a monomial. Now I'm going to put j in front only because multiplication is commutative, so it doesn't matter which way I write it. So 2x times 3x minus 1. Distribute. We get 6x squared minus 2x. Let's try D. Okay, so D is f of x divided by j of x. All right, so let's write down f of x, and I'm going to write it as a fraction. So it's going to be 6x to the fourth minus 4x to the third plus 10x squared minus 8x divided by j of x, which is 2x. So remember, when we divide, it's got to go into the denominator has to divide into the numerator. So what we get is 6 divided by 2 is 3. X to the fourth divided by x is x to the third. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X to the third divided by x is x squared. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. X squared divided by x is x. And negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. And then the x and that x there, they reduce to just 1. So I'm just left with minus 4. All right, so let's take a look at 2. Okay, so 2 says, for each of the following, find the leading coefficient and the degree. So notice for A, I'm subtracting these polynomials. So we need to subtract first. So make sure you distribute that negative 1. So it is 2x squared plus 4x, plus 4, sorry, minus x to the third plus 5x. So when I combine my terms, I get negative x to the third plus 2x squared plus 5x plus 4. All right, so what is the degree of the polynomial? The degree is 3. Remember, that's the largest exponent. And the leading coefficient, I'm just going to put LC for leading coefficient, is negative 1. That's the number that's in front of your degree variable. Remember, there's really a 1 there, so it's negative 1. All right, so B we need to double distribute because we're multiplying. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 3 is 6x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. And negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Combine like terms, we get 2x squared plus x minus 15. So my degree is 2. Degree is equal to 2. And my leading coefficient is equal to 2 also. All right, so let's take a look at C. C is another one I have to multiply. So it's negative 2x times 3x to the second is negative 6x to the third. And then I have negative 2x times 5 is negative 10x squared. And negative 2x times negative 1 is positive 2x. So my degree is equal to 3. And my leading coefficient is equal to negative 6. All right, so let's take a look at 3. Okay, so 3 is to factor each of the polynomials. So there are 7 of them. So I'm just going to minimize this paper and just go along and rewrite them as I do them. So 3a is 18x to the third y minus 72xy. So remember, when you factor, you look for GCF first. Then you could look for dots, difference of two perfect squares. If you have 4 terms, you should be thinking of grouping. If you have a trinomial, you should be thinking of master product. If it's one of those weird polynomials, well, it depends on what there is, okay? So I noticed there is a GCF. The GCF is 18xy. And then we're left with x squared minus 4. And then I can factor x squared minus 4. It is the difference of two perfect squares, so it's x plus 2x minus 2. And remember, bring down the GCF. All right, so that was 3a. So let's take a look at 3b. Okay, so 3b is, okay, so I have 3x squared ab minus 12x ab minus 36ab. So I noticed that there is a GCF, and the GCF is 3ab. So I'm left with x squared minus 4x plus minus 12. All right, and then I notice inside the parentheses that I have a trinomial, so I'm going to factor the trinomial, so I'm going to use master product. So I multiply the first times the last, I get negative 12x squared. What multiplies to 12 minuses to 4, that's 6x and 2x. And it's negative 6x and positive 2x, that's how I get negative 4x. So bring down the front and the end, and then I'm going to factor by grouping. So the GCF of the first group is x, and then I have x minus 6. Plus GCF is 2 times x minus 6. So my factors are x plus 2, x minus 6. And then don't forget to bring this guy down. So that's 3ab times x plus 2, x minus 6. All right, let's take a look at C. Okay, so C, I have a trinomial. So I'm going to multiply the first times the last, do master product. So I have negative 90x squared. So what number is multiplied in 90? Minus to 9. That would be 15x and 6x, and that's negative 15, positive 6. That gives me negative 9x minus 9, 10x squared. GCF is the GCF of the first group is 5x times 2x minus 3. And then I have a plus. GCF is 3 times 2x minus 3. My factors are 5x plus 3 and 2x minus 3. Let's take a look at D. Okay, so D is 7x to the third minus 28x minus 3x squared plus 12. So I noticed that there are 3 terms, so I think of grouping. So I group the first 2, I group the last 2. The GCF of the first group is 7x, and then I'm left with x squared minus 4. I have a minus, so the GCF is 3 times x squared minus 4. So my factors are 7x minus 3, x squared minus 4, and then I have an x squared minus 4, and that can factor. It's the difference of 2 perfect squares, x plus 2x minus 2, and then don't forget to bring down the 7x minus 3. All right, let's take a look at E. Okay, so E is x to the third minus 27y to the third. So that's the difference of perfect cubes. All right, so I'm going to set up my small parentheses and my large parentheses. I want to write down the cube roots. The cube root of x to the third is x. And the cube root of 27y to the third is 3y. So remember, SOAP. So I have same, opposite, always positive for the signs. So it's same, which is going to be a minus, opposite, which is going to be plus, and then always positive. Remember, this is A, B, in the middle is AB, and then in the front and the end is A squared and B squared. So this is going to be x minus 3y, and then x squared at the front. And then I want to do 3y squared. Remember to square the whole thing. That's going to give you 9y squared. And then it's going to be a times b, which is going to be 3xy. All right, let's take a look at G. Okay, so sorry, that was the next one is F that we need to look at. So this is one of those weird ones. All right, so notice that inside my parentheses here, I have an x squared plus 3 and x squared plus 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write let x squared plus 3 equal y. So I'm going to have y squared minus 11y plus 28. And now I'm going to factor that trinomial. All right, so I'll mass the product and multiply the first times the last. I get positive 28y squared. What multiplies to 28 adds to 11 would be 7 and 4. So it's 7y and 4y. They get the same signs. They're both negative. And now I'm going to factor by grouping. So I have GCF is y times y minus 7. GCF is negative 4 times y minus 7. And I get y minus 4 times y minus 7. Now I need to change my y back to what it's equal to. Y is actually, remember, x squared plus 3. So in the first one, it's going to be x squared plus 3. And then I have the minus 4. And then I have x squared plus 3 minus 7. Okay, so in the first parentheses, I get x squared, 3 minus 4 is negative 1. In the other parentheses, it's going to be x squared, 3 minus 7 is negative 4. And then those both of these here is the difference of 2 perfect squares. So I have x plus 1, x minus 1, x plus 2, x minus 2. All right, so let's take a look at 3G. Okay, so I have x to the third plus 8x squared plus 12x plus 96 plus 7x squared plus 56x. So there's all these terms, and when you see all those terms and it says to factor, you don't want to combine like terms, you want to group. So I group the first two, group the last two, the middle two, and the last two. So look at the first group. The GCF is x squared times x plus 8. So that means if I do this right, then all my parentheses should be x plus 8. Plus, the GCF of the next group is 12 times x plus 8. Plus, the GCF of this last group is 7x times x plus 8. All right, so now let's, our coefficients are one factor, that's x squared. I'm going to put this in the right order, 7x plus 12, and then x plus 8. And then in this parentheses here, I have to do master product. So I multiply the first times the last, I get positive 12x squared. What multiplies to 12 adds to 7 is 3x and 4x, and same signs, they're both positive. So bring down the x squared and bring down the plus 12. So let's factor first two, last two. GCF of the first two is x times x plus 3. Plus, and then GCF is 4 times x plus 3. So my factors are x plus 4, x plus 3, and then don't forget to bring that one down, x plus 8. Okay, so we're done with all the factoring. Let's go to number 4. Okay, so number 4 is to find this here. So remember, this means inverse. All right, so let's start with number 4a. Remember, inverse means to switch x and y, so I'm going to first start by changing this to y equals 3x plus 7. Change x and y, switch them, x equals 3y plus 7. Now solve. So minus 7, I get x minus 7 equals 3y, and divide by 3. I get y equals x minus 7 all over 3. And remember, just write it using the inverse. The inverse of f of x equals x minus 7 all over 3. And remember, another way to write this would be f of x equals x over 3 minus 7 over 3, or you could be 1/3 x minus 7 over 3. Okay, let's take a look at B. Same thing, change it to y equals 2x minus 1 over 3. Switch x and y, x equals 2y minus 1 over 3. Put the x over 1, cross multiply, we get 3x equals 2y minus 1. Add 1 to both sides, I get 3x plus 1 equals 2y. Divide by 2, y is equal to 3x plus 1 all over 2. So that's the inverse of f of x equals 3x plus 1 all over 2. And of course, make sure you can write that another way also. All right, let's take a look at C. So that's y equals the cube root of x minus 4. So we're going to switch x and y. I get x equals the cube root of y minus 4. To get rid of a cube root, you cube both sides. So I have x cubed equals y minus 4. Add 4 to both sides. X cubed plus 4 equals y. So that is the inverse of f of x is equal to x cubed plus 4. All right, so let's take a look at 5. Okay, so 5 is to graph a function and then graph its inverse. So since it's a graphing and we're graphing an equation, you want to plug it into your calculator, get a table of values. So plug y equals 2x minus 3 into your calculator, and we'll write down the table of values. All right, so for g of x, we get negative 3, negative 9, negative 2, negative 7, negative 1, negative 5, 0, negative 3, 1, negative 1, 2, 1, and 3, 3. Let's plot the points. So we have negative 3, negative 9. And negative 2, negative 7. Negative 1, negative 5. 0, negative 3. 1, negative 1. 2, 1. And 3, 3. Okay, so draw that line. You should be using a straight edge too, so don't draw it freehanded like I did. All right, so now to find the inverse of g of x, we're going to switch x and y. So it's going to be negative 9, negative 3, negative 7, negative 2, negative 5, negative 1, negative 3, 0, negative 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3. So plot the points, negative 9, negative 3. Negative 7, negative 2. Negative 5, negative 1. Negative 3, 0. Negative 1, 1. 1, 2. And 3, 3. And we get that. Okay, so let's try 5b. Okay, so b is actually a quadratic. G of x equals x squared minus 1. So when you plug this in your calculator, you just can't write down any points that you want. You have to make sure you do have the turning point. So find the turning point. The turning point, remember, is the number where above and below in the y column is the same thing. So my turning point is 0, 1. And then above that I have negative 1, 2, negative 2, 5, and negative 3, 10. And then we have 1, 2, 2, 5, and 3, 10. So plot the points. So I'm going to put this in red. So it's negative 3, 10, negative 2, 5, negative 1, 2, 0, 1, and so on. So just try to draw yours a little bit better than mine. All right, so the inverse of g of x. So we'll have xy. Switching, we get 10, negative 3, 5, negative 2, 2, negative 1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 5, 2, 10, 3. So plot the points. We have 10, negative 3, 5, negative 2, 2, negative 1, 1, 0, and so on. And it'll look like that. Okay, so let's take a look at number 6. Okay, so number 6 says, so it's a word problem. It's the polynomial word problem that we have going on here. The number of CDs sold since September 8th at a music store can be modeled by the function n of d equals 12d plus 35, and the price per CD can be modeled by p of d equals 0.3d squared minus d plus 5, where d is the number of days since September 8th. Determine the total amount of revenue generated in terms of D. According to this model, what is the total amount of revenue generated by the store's CD sales on September 18th? If the cost to produce CDs during the time period was $1,200, determine the amount of profit the store made. Okay, so let's see here. Let's box off what's important, and what we have to answer here. The number of CDs sold since September 8th. Okay, so this is important, September 8th. And this is the total number of CDs here. And the price per CD is this polynomial. And D is the number of days since September 8th. Okay, so here's a question. Here's something that we have to determine. Determine the amount of revenue generated in terms of D. According to this model, here's another one. What is the total amount of revenue generated by the store's CD sales on September 18th? And then we have to do, if the cost of the CDs sold during this time period was $1,200, determine the amount of profit that was made. So we have 3 things to do. All right, so let's write down one of the things we have to do. The first one. And that is to determine the total amount of revenue generated in terms of D. So to find the revenue, and I'm going to use R for revenue, right? You take the amount of CDs that you were sold and you multiply by the price of each one. So that would be N of D times P of D. Number 2 is you want to find out how much was sold, how much revenue on September 18th. Now remember, D is the number of days since September 8th. So we want to do R of 10, sorry. And then 3, we want to find out how much was made if they had $1,200, how much profit. So that means that you have to do the revenue minus $1,200. All right, so let's start with number 1. All right, we want to do R of D is equal to N of D times P of D. All right, so that would be 12D plus 35 times 0.3D squared minus D plus 5. Now, it doesn't say simplest form. It just says in terms of D. So you can leave it like that. All right, so that was number 1. Number 2 is to find R of 10. So now you just have to plug 10 in for D. So it's 12. Oh, sorry, I forgot the D here. So it's 12 times D, which is 12 times 10, plus 35, times 0.3 times 10 squared, minus 10 plus 5. And that you could just plug into your calculator all at one time. So we get R of 10 is equal to 38.75. 38.75. Okay, that's how much revenue. All right, so now the last part, number 3, we have to do for the profit. The profit would be 38.75 minus 1,200, and we get 36.75. Okay, so that's number 6, and let's go to number 7. Okay, so number 7, the volume of a rectangular prism is represented by this polynomial in cubic inches. Find the dimensions of the prism of x. If x is equal to 3 inches, find the dimensions of the prism. All right, so the volume of a rectangular prism is length times width times height. All right, so they're giving you the volume is 6x to the third plus 51x squared plus 90x. All right, so now how do I get the length and the width and the height from this polynomial? Well, this is all multiplication, which means these are the factors. They're going to be the factors of this polynomial. So to get the factors, I have to factor this. So when I'm done, I should have 3 factors. So I need a length, a width, and a height. So I notice there's a GCF, and the GCF is 3x times 2x squared plus 17x plus 30. And now I have to factor the trinomial. So I multiply the first and the last, master product, positive 60x squared. What multiplies to 60 adds to 7 is 12x and 5x. And it's both positive. So I bring down the 30 and I bring down the 2x squared, and now I'm going to factor by grouping. So the GCF of the first group is 2x times x plus 6. And then I have a plus, and the GCF is 5 times x plus 6. So my factors are going to be 2x plus 5 and x plus 6. And then I'm going to bring down the 3x, and that's my volume. All right, so I'm just going to move everything up a tiny bit. Okay, so now, so that's my length. So this would be my length, my width, and the height. So now I want to find what are the dimensions. So if x is equal to 3. So I have 3x, so it's going to be 3 times 3 is 9 inches. I have 2x plus 5 is going to be 2 times 3 plus 5, which is 6 plus 5 is 11 inches. And I just have to find the last one. And I have x plus 6 is going to be 3 plus 6, and that's equal to 9 inches. So this is the dimensions of the rectangular prism is a 9 by 9 by 11. Okay, so that's it. Study. If you need to, review the video again and get ready for your first test for tomorrow. Okay, have a good night.